I'll ask each of the panelists to come up as I read your introduction. Shannon Paul. Shannon has led successful social media efforts within highly regulated companies, including Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan and the online division of Peak Six, a privately held financial services company. Her experience includes digital marketing and communications, strategic leadership with an emphasis on social media, and word-of-mouth marketing campaigns. She is an expert in managing every aspect of a corporate social media presence. Please welcome Shannon Paul. Welcome. Mike Oswald is a digital experience strategist. His marketing, management, communications, and design background, coupled with 17 years of experience in the digital space, have propelled Hanson's client solutions to new levels of performance and success. This success, he says, is no accident. And I quote, Hanson's overriding strategic philosophy is that websites and all online experiences are extensions of clients' brand relationships, and putting people first is paramount. Please say hello to Mike Oswald. Meredith Salo is an expert on all things social media. In 2009, after the fallout of the automotive industry, Meredith had $0 in her HR budget. So she used her social media prowess and turned to Facebook to recruit top talent. She has managed social media campaigns for brands such as Land's End, Schick, KY Brand, Care.com, Callaway Golf, Tide, Hewlett-Packard, 1-800-Flowers, Crystal Light, and Rumor Hotel Las Vegas. Her clout score is 13 points higher than Matt Damon's. A round of applause for Meredith Salo. Kim Garretson is co-founder and Innovation Venture Partners at Ovative Group, Minneapolis. The firm's practices are customer data, analytics, e-commerce, and digital, mobile and social media innovation. Kim connects venture capital firms and their portfolio companies with enterprise customers. He focuses on innovation discovery for mass retailers, brands, digital agencies, and media companies throughout his venture capital network. Recent innovation discovery clients include Procter & Gamble, Kraft Foods, General Mills, and Colgate. Kim has a 30-year track record of digital innovation. Please welcome Kim. Our moderator for the panel will be Eric Qualman. So let's welcome Eric back to the stage. And we do have 2 microphones positioned in the room for questions from the audience. If you would like to participate, please approach one of these locations and Eric will call on you. Eric, we look forward to your discussion.
Well, I'm excited to be on this panel because I'm going to ask you questions that sometimes I don't know the answer to, and I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal from them. And then also we're going to open it up to you for questions for the last 15 minutes, so start thinking through what's pressed on your mind that can help move your business. But before we get into it, I know Mike has an announcement that he'd like to do right now.
Yes, for everyone who is participating today to win an iPad and also to contribute to our real-time social network, remember to go to dallashamilton.com from your mobile device and check in, and you can enter the table that you're sitting at as well as answer the survey questions that are provided on that site. So within the next half hour or so, please do that.
Great. I'm going to give you this because I'm mic'd up. But I'm going to start. We're going to have an informal discussion, but I want to ask specific questions to each one of you because I was just so excited. I want to know specific answers because some of you have different areas of expertise. But Shannon, I'd like to start with you and just ask you, how do you align such a large organization on social strategies? Because I know that can be very tricky to do.
You know, yeah, I started with Fifth Third Bank in June of last year, and so a lot of it is just becoming immersed in the business. You know, I first had to really learn, Fifth Third Bank, as much as I could inside and out, all of the intricacies, the culture, as much as I possibly could, because really, like you were saying earlier, you don't want to necessarily have a siloed social media strategy. And while we do have a standalone social media strategy so that we can call it out, operational alignment is key, making sure that we understand what these major business drivers are, and then regarding social media as a set of tools and tactics that will help us move the needle on those bigger business objectives.
Great, thank you. And then we'll go to Meredith here, because we talked a lot about LinkedIn in the presentation this morning. How do you recruit using all these social tools, and also how do you retain the talent?
Well, I think for me, the main thing was figuring out that on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, my employees were friends with people that they had previously worked for at the competitor. So once you start scouring through friends lists, just the same way you do to like look up your ex-boyfriend, you figure out that you can find people working at a competitor. And then initially I was reaching out to them through like LinkedIn messages or Facebook messages. And then I just started picking up the phone and calling them, because at the end of the day, we're recruiters, and you have to go back to some of those old school techniques, even if you are using new media. So.
Oh, great. And then Kim, on your side, because you have a unique experience of actually being kind of from the venture capital world, how do you see those worlds colliding, and how does an entrepreneur leverage social media to really either formulate their product or their mission or their business and actually launch their business?
So let me give you a story of how this is being done very innovatively. So in Minneapolis, where I'm from, we have the grain exchange, and this used to be the nation's premier place where grain sellers and buyers got together to trade grain. It's in a room in downtown Minneapolis that's about the size of this room, but it has 30-foot high ceilings because one wall was the electronic price board for grain exchange. Now the traders are still in that building, but they're in small offices because it's all done electronically. So a co-working space, that is, entrepreneurs can come in and rent a table or a bigger space to launch their new ventures, and they were able to hack that electronic board that again is about the size of that wall there, and they have real-time Twitter feeds and LinkedIn updates and such from all of the companies that are in that space together. And what is happening then is these companies are helping each other out because they're looking up at the board and seeing what people are saying. So that's a good example of an entrepreneur using all social media tools to not only say what they're doing, but ask questions and get help.
Yep, no, that's great. And you touched on something we didn't cover this morning, which is the trend of the shared workspace, where the multiple companies are sharing the same work environment, one to cut costs, but also, for exactly your point, is to kind of brainstorm on different ideas, even though one might be an engineer and another one might be on the marketing side in terms of their products, is that really helps them out. And also companies are starting to actually lease out their excess space to sometimes even competitors to sit in their company. So it's interesting. That's a good point that you touched on. And then now, Mike, on the innovation side, obviously you have a lot of clients and prospects that reach out to you to figure out what's next, and also how do I use it for my business? How do I innovate my business? What do you see as some of the bigger challenges that companies are going to face in the coming years when it comes to social media or technology in general?
I think that from our perspective, there is quite a deal of things that businesses need to just get their house in order first. So I think from a short-term perspective is, all the things you've talked about are real and they're now. I really like the stuff you showed at the end, which was showing these things getting killed off, some of which are controversial, some of which have already happened, and so forget the 6 years part. So I would like to see businesses really concentrate on coordinating their activities across all channels, thinking about connected content strategy, starting to understand analytics if you don't. I think in the longer term, the next few years, I think agile marketing is really the term that we should be talking about, and have people really rethink their structure of how marketing, PR, advertising, product development all need to really work together and co-create products and share budgets and change things not just yearly, but all the time. And I think that's where, I think that's the radical change in businesses that needs to happen to catch up with what we're seeing happen on the other side.
No, that's great. And you raise a good point in terms of the constant innovation is that your company, there's a competitor out there right now that's got a bullseye on your back. And so you're going to be displaced. Your product and service will be displaced, so it might as well be you. And so some of the great CEOs and even some of the great CEOs, they go outside and do an exercise to where they look back and go, if I was sitting on the board and I fired myself, if I fired the CEO, if I was the board, what would I do? What's the first thing that I'd do after that day happened? And so that's what a lot of companies look at doing. But now it's open mic night. So we have 2 microphones, so I know you guys have a lot to say, so feel free to just ask for the microphone. But one question I want to throw out there, which is kind of the elephant in the room for a lot of us, is a lot of people ask, what's the return on investment of social media? And so when you're asked that, either it's by an executive or someone in the room, what do you guys usually respond with?
Well, a lot of our practice at Ovative Group focuses on retailing because I was at Best Buy, my co-founder was at Target, and the return on investment for social commerce in terms of actually ringing the online cash register has been slow coming, but I think this is the year where there's going to be a clear, call it path to purchase and ROI in social commerce, especially with innovations that are coming in Facebook. But some of these new tools and measurements for what you call unstructured data, big data, are proving to have an ROI just in terms of gaining affinity of customers, having them be your cheerleaders, keeping them away from competition. So we're starting to see new tools that are measuring ROI in a different way other than monetarily.
From the recruiting standpoint, the ROI for our business was, before I started using these techniques to recruit, our turnover rate was 66%. And that's astronomical. It's a car dealership. The industry standard, I think, is 72. So we were pretty proud of 66%. But can you imagine just churning and burning through people like that? Once we started actually hunting for people instead of posting jobs and praying that the guy that cycled all over town would apply to our job, and actually going out and seeking out the top talent at other dealerships that are in our competition, we've reduced our turnover down to 6%, and last year it was like 8%. So significant increase in people staying with the company and wanting to be with the company. And I think it's just all how the process went down. I didn't put a job out there and ask them to come work for me. I sought them out and courted them and made them want to come and work for us and see why Ed Schmidt is different than other dealerships in town. So the ROI for us has been a reduction in turnover, but also I haven't posted a help wanted ad since 2011. So can you imagine how much money you would be saving at your businesses if you're not putting things on Monster, if you're not putting things in the Toledo Blade? It's a tremendous savings, just not spending all that money and hoping that someone's going to apply for this job.
And so when you're going and finding these people, are you using mainly LinkedIn, or how are you locating these people and sourcing them? And then how are you reaching out to them? Is it a combination of digital and the phone, or how does that work?
Well, I primarily use Facebook, which might surprise some of you. But the math is just there. There are over 1 billion people on Facebook. There are not that many people on LinkedIn. My mom is on Facebook. Everybody is on Facebook. So when people say, oh, you can't use Facebook to recruit, it doesn't work, LinkedIn is the professional recruiting network, people don't want you to call them from Facebook. No, people don't want to be recruited, and that's why they're not putting their profile on LinkedIn, because they're tired of recruiters calling them. Or, we have cases where we have blue-collar workers. So a service technician doesn't even know what LinkedIn is. If you have machinists in your company, good luck finding them on LinkedIn. But guess where they're at? They're definitely on Facebook. So Facebook is where I'm primarily finding people to recruit for these jobs. What was the second question?
No, that you nailed it.
Okay,
Is when you reach out to them, is it generally on the phone, or is it?
When I reach out to them, at first I was sending messages through Facebook, which, by the way, Facebook makes you pay $1 now if you've been upgraded. I don't know if anyone's noticed that. That wasn't really working, because how weird is that? Hey, I'm Meredith, the HR director at Ed Schmidt. I really want you to come work for me. And this guy's like, dude, who are you? Spam. So, I mean, it says where they work. I mean, Jim White Toyota, it says right there. So I pick up the phone and I'll be like, hey, I need to speak to Bill in service. And they're like, oh, well, I know these guys don't have like necessarily phones by their desk, so I have to leave a message with the receptionist. So since I can't call directly and get through to him, I'm leaving a message that makes him want to call me back, which is, this is Meredith calling from Ed Schmidt. Yeah, I really need Bill to call me. Anyway, he might have lost my number. My cell phone number is 419, blah, blah, blah. And then the receptionist's like, holy crap, Bill's married. You know, like, who's this girl calling him at work? So they always take the message over to him, which I know some of you are like, that's not even right. But I tell you what, Bill calls me back. Bill calls me back.
Great. No, I got it. So Meredith, it sounds like Facebook's your tool of choice, and it's a good distinction to make, is that all of us, what we'll find out is don't boil the ocean. You're going to find there's multiple tools out there, but you're going to figure out what works the best for your business. Where hers might be Facebook, mine might be YouTube. So we use them for different reasons, and you'll find out what your sweet spot is. I'm going to start down here with Shannon and go down the line on what tool is kind of your number one tool. You might use a couple of them, but what's your number one tool and why?
I'm going to sidestep that question entirely and say I
Okay.
don't believe it's about tools.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I can evaluate any kind of a platform based on its functionality, but it's always strategy first.
Yep.
What are we trying to do in social media? And then then picking the tools is easier. What are we trying to do? Who are we talking to? What are we trying to say? And a lot of that is informed from a content strategy, and then we pick the right tools based on where we want to be. I mean, today, the bank is engaged in two places. The bank is on Facebook, and we're on Twitter. And there's really good reasons for both of those to be there. But as our program becomes more mature, we're going to move away from sort of into more of a platform agnostic strategy where we really focus on the type of content that people are seeking that we feel as a bank we can help with.
Yep. No, you make a good point, too. It's not necessarily the tool. Don't overinvest in the specific tool because it could change. Like MySpace could go away tomorrow. And so it's really just dealing in those constructs and the strategy, like you mentioned.
I talk about it's like building on rented land, you
Yep.
know, in Facebook especially. The terms of service can change on a dime. I log in one day and all of a sudden our brand page has replies. We had we didn't know until
Yep.
we, went in to do something that we had a new feature. So we have to keep really on top of those things, and really important to not just, put all your eggs in one basket and stay focused on a single platform, but think about, what you're trying to say, the kind of information that you want people to find and share relative to your brand or your company, and then looking at the platforms from that point is easy.
Yep.
I would agree that being prepared for any of the platforms that are out there to come is a good idea. So I was thinking of making a Pinterest page of like all my pocket change each day. Would that interest you?
Sure.
That's being prepared.
And then those of you not familiar with Pinterest, essentially you can pin photos that you think are amazing, and then everyone can see those photos out there. And the beauty of Pinterest is they took an existing idea that for over a couple decades, we've always had bookmarking tools on stuff. Oh, I like this article, I like this website. And they just made it kind of pretty, put a pretty face on there. So that's what Pinterest is. If you don't use it, it's a great tool for a business because there's low investment, because you can just go out and pin some of the great photos that you have around your business, and you might get some traffic to flow in. And actually, stats show that it drives more traffic than Twitter for a lot of businesses. But that was a good one to bring up.
Full disclosure, is this on? Yeah, full disclosure, we work with venture capital-backed emerging tools and platforms. So my current favorite platform is a client, published this out of Los Angeles. So in our consulting firm, 20 people, our consultants are too busy to blog, do Twitter, do social media. So we've automated the process with the Publish This platform. What it does is it finds relevant content from around the web on topics of interest to our consultants, retail innovation, customer engagement, big data, and brings all that content into a place where in less than 15 minutes a day, our senior consultants can pick out the best of the best and write little annotations, a little 20-word commentary on why they like them, and push a button and they will publish to our new site, which launches next week. So we've taken what was an onerous task down to a 15-minute task for our team.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. And then a lot of us out there in the audience are probably going, man, I get it, I want to do it, but yet my company actually blocks me from using social media when I'm in the office. Now, how many currently have their tools blocked? Does anyone have Facebook blocked? So maybe about 20% of you out there. It's nice to see. Generally, it's 54% of companies block certain divisions. So they might give it access to marketing, but then sales they won't give access to. But I would like to ask the panel here is that, one, do any of your companies or companies you work with, do they block social media? Or if they don't, what do you say to companies that do block social media?
Okay, so there are a few. Personally, I think that the needle is moving there. You know, we do. I work for a bank. We block most social media sites for most people. I have what they consider hyper access. So, and certain members of our teams do as well. But a lot of it is like we know in certain pockets of the company, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the bank, but I think this is much more broad, is that companies in general know that it has to move, because initially what happens is as soon as the company starts becoming engaged in social media, employees want access and they want to see what the company is doing in social media, and it's a very natural sort of thing that happens. But for a bank in particular, we have a lot of risks, and our job is to manage those risks effectively. So really and we want to be very thoughtful about this because we have some very, very important data. So there, you know, aside from a lot of the individual risks to people and their reputation or you know, their professional reputation, there's also some very real risks to an infrastructure, to a technology infrastructure that you know, has a lot of very sensitive information. So I think you know, it's important to be thoughtful about how to move the needle. We don't necessarily want to, you know, do what happened back in the 70s when they lowered the drinking age from 21 to 18 and everyone went, woohoo, you know. We want to make sure that people understand the risks, their own personal risks, and the risks to the company before we start moving the barriers from where they are today. But you know, I like to tell people frequently that, you know, in 1987, nobody was standing outside the elevator checking to see what kind of magazines or newspapers people were bringing into the building. And a lot of that, what we think of as a productivity issue, is much more a management issue. If somebody isn't doing their job, it doesn't matter why they're not doing their job, unless you're trying to coach them out of it. But you know, what I mean is that they could be wasting time in the bathroom, they could be, you know, taking extra time at lunch, they could be doing a lot of things to essentially avoid being productive. And of course, you know, social media does lend itself to that, but of course that's still a performance issue and not necessarily a technology issue.
Well, being in HR, I have a lot to say about that. Of course. You know, we used to block Facebook and Twitter and all of it at the dealership. And I'll never forget the day I decided to tell Mr. Tom Schmidt that I was a blogger and I'd been secretly blogging and I had this whole community of people that were secretly following me. But anyway, I think that because I've grown, that we could grow as a dealership if we introduced social media to the dealership. And I was so nervous to tell him, and he was like, yeah, cool, go for it. So and then I was like, and also I need people to be engaged and I want to be able to like tag our employees in pictures and do all these things. He was like, okay, unlock it. So I think it starts from the top down, really. So if you're a CEO in this company and you want your company to be engaged in social media, you lead by example. So open it up, because at the end of the day, if you think they're not getting on Facebook from work, you are dead wrong, because they're on their iPhones on Facebook at work. And I agree with you. It is a management issue. And sometimes I think we take ourselves a little bit too seriously as companies and as HR people, if there's any HR people in the room. Because at the end of the day, this is just how people talk to each other now. It's how they talk.
And do you find it hard to recruit Gen Y if your company blocks social? Does it send the wrong message to people you're trying to recruit?
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, because they're going to look at your company too, and then when they get there and find out it's not the appearance that you gave them, they're not going to want to stay there. So I think it's just the way people talk, and you have to change with the times.
So I'm going to take your question, Eric, and twist it and ask you a question. So in the venture world, we're starting to see money going to social media tools that don't leave a digital footprint, yep. So thus a digital shadow doesn't emerge. Right. Snapchat, Eroder, things like that. Yep. Just the poof, they're gone in a minute or 30 minutes or things like that. So is that going, what do you see around that trend, and is that going to open more companies up to allowing this, or they don't know that employees are doing this because the stuff is erasing automatically?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, privacy is gone. And so what happened is there's this massive shift where all of a sudden our privacy is completely almost eviscerated. And so now these other companies formulate, because human beings, we didn't want our privacy to be gone, and so how do we get more of it back? And so that's why a guy like Dave Morin, who helped found Facebook, left Facebook to start a company called Path. And on Path, it's a closed network, 150 people or less. So if you want to post about your family, or you want to share memories about maybe your great-grandmother passed away, and you want to keep it secure and private, that's what that's supposed to do. That being said, I'm evangelist of what happens in Vegas stays on YouTube. Do what you can to lock down your privacy, but know that whatever you do offline and online is going to be found out. So now your integrity and your reputation, it used to be integrity is what happened behind closed doors, what your core was, and your reputation, that's what the public perceived you to be, are now kind of one. And actually, for the most part, that's a good thing. But there are some downsides as well. But I think that you'll start to see more and more companies emerge to help people get more and more of their privacy back. Great question. I love this, getting questions on the panel. It's good. And then you guys are exposed, especially Kim and Mike, to a lot of different companies out there. Who do you think, so the audience knows and they can go out and kind of look at them, who do you think does social or mobile or digital the best? And if you want to explain why, that's good as well, too.
Well, actually, I'll just use one that isn't so direct to the things we've been talking about so far. And earlier this week, GE announced that in a partnership with Quirky, which is an online community of several 100,000 inventors who are developing products in real time with people and co-creating, they announced opening a lot of their patents that are important, and they're talking about building app-connected and digitally enabled devices for people, and that could relate to health and living a better life, and also controlling your home and things like that. So I mean, that's a huge social thing, and it's about innovation and entrepreneurialism. So
great!
I'm really excited about that.
I like what Gatorade is doing with Mission Control in Chicago. I think that's a brand that knows and is doing it right. I like innovation that's coming along that are going to let more companies and more brands innovate. On the issue of privacy, there are companies emerging that can find people out as they're living their mobile life in a private manner, because what they're looking at is what your handset is doing. What IP addresses it checks into, what stores you frequent, what you do when you're inside a store, in an aisle or at an item, but in a private way, because they're tracking the handset and not knowing, who you are. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in mobile in terms of finding you in a private manner when you're out living your mobile life, and surprising, delighting, and rewarding you.
Okay, great. I think we have 1 minute left, so I'm going to go speed round with each of you giving just your answer. If you want to add 30 seconds to why, that'd be great. And I'm going to spring it on you here. We've got competing platforms between the Apple iPhone and then you've got the Android, the Google Android. And so starting down here, who do you think is going to win that battle?
Now, I have an iPhone,
Yep.
but I'm gonna say my money's on Android. I think that they've embraced the kind of open platform and development, and I think that's where the future is. I think that it's going to become less about sort of vanity products and more about cheap technology that evolves very quickly. The thing is actually disposable. It's all the data and everything that will carry with it.
Can I say BlackBerry or something?
That'd be rogue.
Microsoft.
That'd be great. Yeah, BlackBerry.
I'm not going to say BlackBerry, Microsoft. I think that the iOS platform is really great in the fact that it has standards and it is closed. And I think that lets a lot of people develop things in a known confinement. But at the same time, the Android platform has been exposed so far and wide, and we have so many more devices to create in the world beyond tablets that need some operating system and some interface. So I think, and just, I mean, I think it's at the whim of still cell phone companies what they want to push out there. But I think Android's got a room to grow with a lot of different things.
The jury's out with Mr. Cook at Apple, because Mr. Jobs made all the decisions about what he wanted to add or not, and it's different on the Android side. So there are three really interesting innovations on the Android side that you'll learn more about in Mike and my breakout. But look at Gimbal, G-I-M-B-A-L, from Qualcomm. Look at Mobeam, M-O-B-E-A-M, and look especially at NFC, Near Field Communications, all of which are going onto the Android platform and going to do some amazing things, and remains to be seen whether Cook will follow suit in innovations in iPhone.
Great. I follow all the geeky techie people. Okay. I'm just going to say, from ease of use, I think that Apple has the better product. I mean, I was just teaching my dad how to use his brand new iPhone 5 the other day, and I walked him right through it, surprisingly. And he used to have an Android, and he had no idea how that thing worked at all. So I'm just going from the total non-geek perspective that just from ease of use, I don't see Apple going away anytime soon.
Yep, no, that's great. And this has been, my take on it is it's similar to the PC wars, is I think that Google's going to own the majority of the market share, just like Microsoft did on the computer side. And then to your points exactly, is that Apple has a very easy to use, closed environment, so their market share will kind of be less, but they'll have that really affinity group that they hold on to. But we'll see. We don't know what Mr. Cook's going to do. But I asked that question just from a business standpoint, if you're developing mobile apps, to just give it a think. And if your competitor's on Apple, two of your competitors are on Apple, then maybe you go to the Android thinking that, one, the platform might take off, and two, we're going to get ahead of our competition on that side of the house. So just something to look at. But anyways, it's been an honor to be on the panel with everybody here, with all these experts. So I want to thank you for your time.